Hello, and welcome to this very special session that we are doing today. The reason for this session is because when I met lots of students, we're always asked about, what also happens at Perfectly Spoken, what happens behind the scenes. So we thought today we will give you some insights, some views as to how we operate, really. And I thought, who was the best person to help us with this? None other than the wonderful Stephanie. Stephanie, our head of education here at Perfectly Spoken. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello, David, and hello, everybody. Yeah, we're super excited to be talking all things perfectly spoken. So, if you have got any questions, anything you'd like to know, maybe you've joined us in one of the live sessions, maybe you've been following a course, or maybe you're thinking about it, please do type in the chat and ask us. We're happy to answer, I think, almost anything, aren't we, David?
I think definitely. Yeah, please, please, please feel free. So let's start though. I've got some questions for
Oh,
Stephanie, right? That I hope everybody will find the answers interesting. So first of all, what's your role?
so my official title is Head of Educational Content. And it's quite self explanatory, really. What that means is that I'm responsible for the content that we produce on the site, the content that's delivered in the lessons. And I also do a lot of content creation as well. So that's a big element of my role, and it's something I really, really enjoy doing. I love planning new courses, thinking about how to best present the material, how to make it interesting, of course, and how to put together some fun activities.
Quite challenging, I think, and we will, I think, get onto that. But first of all, give me a bit, share with everybody a bit about your background, Stephanie, and how you got to this position. What led you to specialize in English language education?
Well, interestingly, I didn't start off life as being a teacher. It wasn't something that I knew I wanted to do. I started working in marketing for a publishing company, and whilst I really enjoyed my role there, I did feel that it wasn't quite the right fit for me. Something wasn't I wasn't getting the satisfaction that I was looking for. Um, and so I did some research, some investigation, and I thought, hang on a minute, let's look into teaching. It sort of appealed. I love learning languages myself, and I've always been curious about our language, about English. I love things like word puzzles, crosswords, anything like that are right up my street. So I did a course, and that was it. I absolutely loved it. And I've been lucky enough to teach in many, many different places and also many, many different types of students.
Oh, wow. So I believe you can speak other languages, unusually for a Brit, actually, that you can speak
Very, yeah.
other languages. Is that right?
That is correct, yes, and I think as a content creator, in terms of being a language learner myself, it's certainly something that's very informative, thinking about how I approach learning a language, what's important for me. Um, so yes, I can speak a little bit of Japanese, I can speak some Italian, some French, and a bit of Portuguese as well.
Wow. And are these languages related to the countries that you've lived in or visited?
Yes, predominantly yes. I think, when we think about learning a language, you need a motivation, don't you? Reason to do it. And maybe that's for work, maybe that's for family connections, or maybe it's because that's the country you're living in and you want to communicate with other people. So definitely for me, living in a country, that the motivation to learn the language was very, very high on my list.
I think so. I mean, I can echo that exactly. And I think because I'm not a language learner, I admire our students because I think they're fantastic. And I always
Absolutely.
struggled. And I speak Spanish, and that was really because I lived in Spain and I wanted to be part of the community there. But I'm no no linguist.
And I
Um,
think, going back to our students and their motivation, I mean, I think it's fantastic. I can just see Lara's joined the chat. Hello, Lara. The motivation and coming to learning a language as an adult, again, you're likely to have different motivation, aren't you? Because, we've all perhaps had to learn a language at school. It was obligatory. So coming to it as an adult, I think is very, very different.
so yeah, so talking about that then, what are the challenges that you see that students face? And maybe they can share theirs as well. I mean, you know,
Absolutely. Do let us know if you're learning English and you face some challenges or got some tips, perhaps. Please do let us know. Big challenge, I think, is time. Um, as an adult, you're likely to have a job, or perhaps you're studying something else, and so it's a question of how am I going to fit this into my schedule? How am I going to make this work? So I think time constraints, time pressure is a really big issue. And I think also perhaps confidence as well. I think perhaps we all know as when we learn something when we're younger, I mean, not just a language, anything, you don't really have fear, do you? You just go for it. But when you take up something when you're an adult, I think perhaps there's that sort of element of confidence as well.
yeah, yeah, very good point. So when in your role as content creator, what sort of approach do you get? Because obviously, you want it to be engaging, you want it to be effective, and these are adult learners. So how do you approach that?
Mm. I think at the core of everything is trying to make it as real as possible. We want to create situations, we want to create practice activities that do replicate what people might actually have to do in real life. And I think trying to keep it as authentic as possible is really, really important. It's something we do at Perfectly Spoken that I'm really proud of, that we do create courses where the practice is something you're going to perhaps meet in a real life situation. I think that helps to keep the learners motivated. So that's always a good basis when you're starting. I think as well, we've got to understand that we've got many, many different types of learners. Everybody learns in different ways. And so, really important to have a variety of activities, a variety of approaches so that we're appealing to lots of different styles of learning.
Right, good. So are those your key principles then in sort
Yes,
of
I
variety?
would say so. Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, um, if we look at the learning experience, I mean, working online, of course, has its own challenges. And we've got some, I sure our students agree, we've got some fantastic teachers. Can you tell me a little bit about them? Can you give us
Yeah, I
an
mean, aren't the teachers fantastic? I think, in terms of what they bring to the lessons, because it's not just about the material, is it? It's about engaging with the students and creating that feeling of a classroom. Because yes, we are online, but I think something that's really integral to Perfectly Spoken is how we do manage to create that feeling of an actual classroom where students are talking to each other, they're interacting with the teacher as well. And there's that real sense of, yes, it might be virtual, we're not in the same place, but a lot of the time that's easy to forget, I think, because the teachers are very, very skilled at creating that kind of relationship rapport with the students.
I think that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because the teacher, it's a very different proposition than teaching in a classroom with
Yeah.
a group of students. Because I understand you do both. Is that
I
correct?
do both. Yes. Yeah, I do both. So I sort of have a foot in both doors here. So yes, I teach in a physical classroom with face-to-face learners, and of course I have my role here at Perfectly Spoken. Um, Very different, and obviously we can see benefits for both of them.
So then, if we're looking at the live sessions that we do, how do you manage to get them to complement the self study with the live practice?
Mm. So I think that's something that's been a really valuable addition to us at Perfectly Spoken. These live sessions where really the key thing is, I think, is that they're not a lesson. The idea is you watch the lesson, you watch it at your own pace, you can watch it as many times as you want, and then you come to the live session ready to practice. And that's really what it's all about. It's about using the language that you've studied. And also it's about asking questions. Maybe there's something you're not too sure about, maybe you want another example. So it's, I think in the live sessions, it's all about taking what we've looked at in, or what the students have looked at in the recorded session, and really having that opportunity to activate, to practice, and to clear up, to clarify any doubts or uncertainties as well.
So that's really interesting. I mean, and I still think it's quite challenging for you to manage the group, and for the for the students. I think I understand they have a fantastic experience, but it is so different, isn't it, than in person teaching.
Absolutely. And I think what we really, and the other teachers as well, what we're really trying to create is that friendly atmosphere. Yes, we're online. Yes, we're just on a Zoom platform, but there's still that feeling of, we see the same students coming back, the students get to know each other. And so there's really that sense of friendship, of camaraderie within that group. And I think that's really, really important that we create that sort of environment where people feel confident to try, because it really doesn't matter if you make a mistake. It's about having a go, trying. You can get real-time feedback. So in, for example, the grammar sessions that I run, we're practicing some key grammar concepts. Students are making sentences, typing in the chat. I can give feedback, and that's really, really effective as well, I think.
Right. So, and I presume that's quite motivating for the student, because that must be one of the biggest challenges, is how you keep
Absolutely.
students motivated.
Yeah, and I think, it's very difficult, isn't it, for students to get that exposure. And you're sort of studying away in your own country possibly, and you're not getting any kind of feedback, any kind of help. And so hopefully in these live sessions, that's what we can provide. We're there and we want to help you improve. So do type in, do join in, do ask the questions. We're really happy to give you that feedback.
Yeah, and Larissa, it was a wonderful comment there, and I couldn't I couldn't agree more. Neither did I. She says, "To be honest, I've never thought that learning language learning is such hard work. It certainly isn't. I think some people have a natural talent, others, certainly I do, have to work at it. But yeah, you've learned lots of grammar and words and expressions and phrasal verbs. That's great."
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Don't expect, it's not going to be easy. You can't just sort of one day wake up and start doing something. But that's true of many things, not just languages. I think, if we think about sport, for example, if you want to get better at something, it's all about practicing, putting in the effort, and hopefully at Perfectly Spoken, we're providing students with the tools, with the motivation and the encouragement to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's still going to be an issue. I mean, that's why we've never, I would hate to promise, you're going to do this in two
Mm.
months or learn a language in 3 months. You see these advertisements, and I think, well, maybe somebody can, but I think the vast majority of us, it's time, dedication, and practice, isn't it?
Absolutely, and so if we sort of think about what's important as a language learner, I really do think two really key factors are being realistic and being consistent. You've got to set yourself realistic goals. If you start and think, I'm going to study for an hour every day, well, realistically, is that going to happen if you've also got a full-time job or a family? Probably not. And then the problem is on day three, you haven't done it, so you feel like, I'll just give up now. So much more effective to think, what can I realistically fit into my week? Is that 10 minutes a day? If that's what it is, then fine, start with that. Keep it up, keep that consistency, because that's what's going to make a difference.
So I was going to ask you, if for somebody who wants advice on building
Mm.
a schedule, what would you say? Do 10 minutes or?
Well, what I'd say is look at your existing schedule. Look at what you've currently got going on in your life because, we are talking about adult learners here. People have families, people have other commitments. So I'd say look at what you've got going on and think, okay, I've made the decision that I want to learn English. How much time can I realistically dedicate to this? And start off with that consistency because being consistent and keeping that going, you can always increase it, but I think the act of decreasing it makes you feel quite negative. So I'd say start small and increase rather than start big with this. I'm going to do an hour every day, and then I'm going to write something on Saturday, and I'm going to do this and watch a film in English on Sunday. It's not sustainable. So I really think you need to find something that works, be
Yeah.
consistent. And when you see the progress from that, that's the motivating factor. You'll
Right.
see progress, you will, and then that motivates you to perhaps add a bit more time to it.
Okay. And we've talked a lot about, the importance of practice. So,
Mm.
outside the events that we offer, live practice sessions, speaking practice groups, are there any other opportunities for students to practice with each other?
Um, Outside of the live classes.
Well, both really. I mean, um,
Yeah. So, for example, we do have Conversation Cafe where students can. That's much more student interacting with student. I mean, I think it's one of the things that we hear back from students that they struggle with this idea of finding other people to practice with, and not everybody has the opportunity perhaps to speak English at work. If you do, then great. That's another
yeah,
area that you can activate the language. But I think what's important is keeping it fun, not making it something heavy. Thinking about, okay, what do I like doing, and can I do that in English? Do I like watching a particular TV series? Can I put English subtitles onto that? Or do I like listening to music? Okay, let's try listening to some English lyrics. Or, if I like cooking, maybe let's start looking at some recipes in English. So trying to keep it to something you're interested in, again, you're less likely to want to stop.
yeah, yeah. Very sound, sound advice indeed. Can we draw to a close? Can I ask you where you see the future of, online language learning
Mm.
going over the next period with all the innovations that there are around? How do you see the
I
future?
think we can't really tie up this chat without mentioning AI, can we? I mean, it's a big one, and of course, at Perfectly Spoken, we're very very aware of it, and it's something we're excited about. I think you'd agree with that, David. It's certainly not something that we see as a negative thing, um, but I think very much of the opinion that it's something that works well in conjunction with a face-to-face teacher. So I don't think we're quite perhaps at the stage where I would say go fully AI. I like that idea of the combination of the two. Lots and lots of advantages with AI, and I'm very excited to see where this is going to go with English language learning. But I still think there's a place for the English language teacher in a classroom.
I agree, and I think there certainly is. Just one final question that I mean, I think you have touched on this, but maybe we could just cover this ground again because it's a really important issue. So Media is asking, what can we do in our daily routine for improving our language?
Hi, Medea. So great question, and thank you for asking it. Again, I think it's really important to think about what you can fit into your daily routine. So, for example, think about how you travel to work. Are you traveling by bus? Maybe that's some time you could listen to some English. Um, so I've just seen another question coming through as well. So think about what you do and how you can fit English into your day. The important thing is you can't expect to see something once and then be able to use it. So it really is about taking something and practicing it. So perhaps, I don't know, you've come across some new vocabulary. Nice idea to try to practice that. So if you do have the opportunity to speak English, try to use some new vocabulary with your colleague or someone in your family, but try to fit a little bit of English in a realistic way, I think would be good advice.
Great, great, and we'll finish with this one because I think this is a good question as well from Natalie. Um, can you recommend some books for learning English?
Big question that, Natalie, and
This is
without really knowing much about your taste in books, it's hard to sort of think of to recommend something. Again, think about the style of books perhaps you enjoy reading in your own language, and try to find something in a similar genre, a similar theme in English. I think that would be good advice. Always keep it to what you enjoy doing. So just because you're doing it in another language doesn't mean you suddenly have to start reading a different style of book. If you like detective books, for example, that's me. I like a good detective book. Try to find something in English in the genre that you already enjoy reading. You could look for translations out there. Again, something that you might have read in your own language, then try to read it in English. Start small. Don't aim too big, I think, to start with. So try to do it in small chunks would be my suggestion.
I mean, and certainly when I was learning Spanish, that's what I did. I had a particular favorite author,
Mm,
and I used to read those books translated
yes.
into Spanish. And then you've got that knowledge that you're already bringing, which makes it a lot easier to understand. And I think again, this is about reading skill, isn't it? That, and don't worry if there are lots of words you don't understand, as long as you're understanding your comprehension, overall comprehension, it will gradually
For
improve.
sure. I mean, you can't look up every word. So, starting with something where you've already got an understanding of it, where you can follow the gist of the story, you get the sense of what's happening. That's going to make you enjoy reading because it's very obstructive to keep having to stop to look something up. So try to go with the flow a little bit, but definitely choosing a genre that you like, that you're interested in, and perhaps one that you've already read in your own language.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. A final question for Stephanie. We are in the holiday season, so what are your plans? Have you got any for the coming Christmas and New Year?
Well, the first thing I have to do is decorate. I haven't decorated yet. I know that it's quite a controversial topic at the moment, isn't it? When to start decorating your house. I don't know if you've started yet, David. I'm
No, no.
No, I'm very much, I don't think about Christmas till December, and I probably, decorate perhaps 2 weeks before Christmas, maybe at the earliest. So that's the first thing I need to do is to decorate and get into the Christmas spirit. But I will be spending Christmas with my family. So I will be going back to my parents and my brother and having a family Christmas.
That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Stephanie, so much for that insight. Don't forget, everybody, tomorrow is a really significant day. It's Black Friday, so and we have, of course, interesting offers. Just go to the website and you can find everything there. But thanks again for joining us, and
Yeah, big
all the
thank
very
you.
best.
And please do come and hopefully we'll see you in some live sessions and hopefully you feel sort of motivated and inspired to start or to continue with your English language learning.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay,
Thank
bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.